Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Lens of Bias. My name is Kat Killian and I'm glad to be here with you today. My apologies to those of you who may watch live. I couldn't find my glasses, which kind of makes it difficult to read for me. So I had misplaced where I put them, so I had to scramble around the house looking for them. Anyway, I'm glad to be here with you, albeit late. So I kind of wanted to talk about not about the latest school shooting, a horrible tragedy that it is, and I wanted to talk more about the rhetoric that we're using surrounding that, the political rhetoric and the different things that we're attributing as causes of mass shootings. And, or in this case, some of the details surrounding the mass shooting. So, on one side of the aisle, they're saying it's all about the guns, it's all about the guns. And on the other side, they're saying it's about mental health, or in this particular case, because the person is identified as trans. And so what does that mean? And kind of fits into a whole nother category of rhetoric that people are using. And so in saying all that, here we have a complex problem. Because obviously people who are committing mass shootings obviously have some kind of mental health issue. At least it's obvious to me. And so in this case of this particular shooter, they were under mental health care, and what that involved. Of course, we don't know. But the facts that we do know or have been presented to us thus far is the person knew what they were doing, that they were buying guns from different stores and not revealing to their family that they had the guns. In one particular case, or one particular gun was surrendered because of the mental health issues. And so it's real easy to say, well, it's people that are the problem when you look at one particular thing. And I'm not advocating necessarily taking away guns from people. Although there obviously is some kind of an issue with mental health, and I'm not quite sure why people would want people who have mental health issues to have guns, or why people who have used guns in a domestic violence situation to continue to have guns. That's just another kind of thing, and I think it's I'm not a mental health expert, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but there is definitely something going on where people cannot control those emotions and cause them to react violently. And so, as a society, I have to question is, do we want those kinds of people to have guns? The other part of it, of course, is the gun equation. And if you look at the statistics when the assault weapon ban expired, how the deaths rise. Now, looking at that, how many of these guns, these assault weapons, are actually used in crimes, in homicides and things like that. And the overwhelming number are handguns. But then there's this differentiation between a homicide, whether it be a domestic violence situation or a gang shooting, or just somebody who is mentally ill and they're killing someone and going after them, as opposed to a mass shooting. And I think the reason why we are in such a panic about mass shootings in our society is because typically these take places in places that we think we're safe, in schools, in churches, in workplaces. Um, and these are all areas that we live or have lived our life um, going to. And we expect a certain level of safety because in each of these places, whether it be a school, a church, or a workplace, we're not there to promote violence, to um, foster a violent situation. We think we're safe. We're doing something good. We're getting an education. We're, uh, worshiping in whatever uh, manner that we think. At work, we're working. If we go to a grocery store, we're going to a grocery store. And so looking at all of these things is, why is this happening? What are the complex issues here? And here's where the bias comes in. If we're using these tragedies that happen as political talking points, well, see, people kill people. It's not, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Yes. But if somebody has access to a high-powered rifle that is meant nothing for nothing but killing, it can't be used for hunting, as people have said that it just kind of would make it. Most people, from what I understand, I'm not a hunter, hunt either for the trophy or they hunt for food. And in which case, a high-powered rifle like this would not enable that to happen, I guess, unless you're a very good shot and you can get it, right where you need to get it. But again, I'm not a hunter, so I don't claim to know that. I just claim to hear, to what I've been told and what I understand from various things. So that being said, I don't see what the point of having these high-powered multi magazine capacity semi-automatic or can be converted to fully automatic guns to be in the hands of the general public and easily available to people without background checks. I would love somebody to correct me if I'm wrong. People talk about using these for personal protection, where someone of the general public has encountered a shooter and used their gun in order to do that, a assault weapon. I know that there are cases where people have used handguns to deter crime. And again, I'm not saying anything either way. What I'm saying is that this is a complex problem. And see, we're bringing in all of these different kinds of things that could point to where not a solution, but can point to solutions, a complex solution for a complex problem in order to reduce the fear that we have of these, of mass shootings. In order to reduce mass shootings would be even nicer to make schools and churches and grocery stores and workplaces make people feel completely safe, like it kind of used to be. And I don't know, it's just this is where this bias comes in here. If you've got a political axe to grind. So this is why I can't trust politicians on this, because most of the politicians who are advocating for, full Second Amendment, I can have any gun I want kind of thing, more often than not, if you look at the statistics, are receiving money from the NRA. And always with these things, follow the money. Where is the money leading us? And if those people are being supported by an organization who is supported by the gun lobby for the sole purpose of selling more guns, That's where the money is coming from. That's where the money is going, and that's what they're supporting. Um, so you lose the money, or you lose the money, you may lose a lot of the support. Um, but again, another complex question, and that's a simplified answer to a complex question. Uh, the mental health piece. Well, the same people who are advocating for the guns are often saying mental health, mental health, mental health. Yet they voted down spending funds to secure mental health. So how can we get this disconnect? And first of all, it is looking at complex problems in a complex light and coming up with complex solutions. So it's not just one problem with one answer. It is a number of problems here: the proliferation of assault style weapons, mental illness, a inability for our society to actually think and talk about issues. If you look at the data, most Americans support some kind of limitations on gun ownership. When our founding fathers founded this country, I don't think they could have imagined the kinds of weapons that are available today. And so, and also what were the use, and then we could go all into the meaning of the Second Amendment, which is a whole other issue. And I don't want to go into that here because I don't think that's the issue. It is more of a situation where we have this complex problem and we need complex solutions. And so if you are coming from a place of bias and you are thinking this is the problem and this is the solution, i.e. guns are the problem, ban guns, or mental health is the problem, people need mental health services, and you vote against it, that's another story. But how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to approach this problem? And the only way in this society is to look at all sides of the story, look at this complex situation in this light, and come up with solutions that may work. But if we are standing on our biases and saying, you are wrong, this is the problem, and talking heads back and forth, we are never going to accomplish anything, and this is the kind of society that we're going to live into. I mean, just another kind of thing, they had a mass shooting in Australia, they realized there was a problem, they banned guns. Since then, they have only had one mass shooting, and I forget the year that it was, but it has been several years since that has happened, where we seem to have mass shootings multiple times a year, and the kinds of shootings where it's not gang and crime related, it is due to a mental health issue. And so if people who have mental health issues cannot get guns, doesn't mean they can't hurt somebody, because people are going to do what they're going to do unless they get help. But if we can minimize the harm that they can cause. So, for example, we need a license to drive a car. If we do not do so responsibly, we may lose our license, either through reckless behavior, through drunken driving, through sometimes people have medical conditions which could potentially, if it strikes while they're driving, could harm people. Sometimes people with age, they lose, it's very unfortunate, but they lose their ability to react, and the reaction time that's needed to properly drive a motor vehicle. So we have laws that will restrict people with certain conditions or certain behaviors from legally operating a motor vehicle. And that's to say people will do things illegally. People will drive without a license if they want to do that. But, you know, other than restricting people's freedom completely whenever they have done some kind of a wrongdoing, we cannot control every aspect, but we can control some aspects of this. So, you know, and I'm even simplifying the problem here. So, on one hand, how can we keep firearms, either handguns or semi-automatic guns, or I don't know if there's other kinds of guns or not because I'm not a gun expert, but keep these instruments that allow people to harm other people in an easier way. How can we do something about that, and rather than just letting them have these free access to guns? The second question I'd ask is, how can we deal with the mental health issues? And right now we know there are so many mental health issues confronting our society. We have children who are in crisis. We have adults who are in crisis. We have people who are identified as others in crisis. So they don't necessarily fit in the mainstream of society, but they're in some kind of crisis. We have people who are bullied for being different, and it doesn't matter what kind of difference there is. But when those issues aren't addressed, and not only is bullying and those kinds of things stopped, but if we don't support people with differences and understand what their differences are, and choose to be inclusive and try to get people the help that they need and the support that they need from society, we're going to continue to have these mental health issues. And some of them may manifest themselves in mass shootings or other kinds of crime, and many of them manifest themselves in suicide and the suicide crisis in this country. And again, to go on a tangent here, is a whole nother crisis aside from what we're talking about here. So with this, if you have a strong opinion on one side or the other, and you are advocating and you are pushing that, look at your own bias. Look and see where you're coming from, and try and see things from the other side of the people. And realize that this is a complex problem and it requires complex solution. And we should demand those solutions from our lawmakers, because ultimately that's the influence that we have. If we sit in our little silos and we just argue back and forth like a bunch of talking heads, and we listen to the media that we're consuming, we're just buying into the bias, and we're not doing anything about the problem. So ask yourself, are you willing to break your lens of this bias? Are you willing to be a part of the solution or a part of the problem? And so on that, I'll get off my soapbox today. But I thank you for tuning in to Breaking Lens Bias. My name's Kat Killian. Hope to see you next week for a new topic and a new bias to look at. Thanks.